If you just tuned in, we are live in the studio with Vienna Teng. You are listening to 88.9 FM KRFC Fort Collins live at lunch.
Well, I've also been looking around at this studio. I wish those of you who are listening could see it. It's just plastered wall to wall with all these posters of amazing artists who have come through, and it's good to see some of our friends here, and then lots of people that we really respect too. It's good company to be in.
Absolutely. Well, Vienna, talk to us about your musical progression and start young. What's your first memory of music?
Wow. Well, I got really lucky in that my parents wanted their kids to just do all kinds of stuff. And so we got signed up for, Little League and dance and art class and all this other stuff. But one of the first things I got signed up for was piano lessons. I like to think that I can take a little bit of credit because when I was climbing up on piano benches at other people's houses and plunking on the piano, so they might have taken the hint from there. But I started playing when I was 5 and studied classical piano until I graduated from high school when I was 17. And it was really one of the great loves of my life. When I was growing up, I just felt like, piano was demanding in so many ways, and then after I was done practicing, I felt like I could also sit and write and explore this world of music and compose things and write things, and that was really, really fun for me, and I felt like it was one of my close friends, kind of my best friend. And I hadn't really taken it seriously as something to do for a living until about midway through college, when I started to get just a lot of friends telling me, like, hey, you should really make a CD, hey, you should play a live show. And I always thought it would be really cool, but I didn't think like there were enough people who would want me to do that for me to make a living doing it. But just the encouragement I got was really heartening, and so I thought I'd give it a shot. And so after graduating and working for a couple of years, I made the leap and been doing it ever since, and it's been absolutely amazing.
That's wonderful. I can't remember if I overheard an interview or if I read somewhere where you said something about part of what the catalyst was creating music that you couldn't hear elsewhere.
Yeah, I think when I was younger, there was, I guess, the natural thing that probably every songwriter has at some point, of listening to something you really like and thinking, oh, I can do that. Like, oh, they're using these 4 chords and they go in this sequence and I can do that. And then so at first it was this sort of innocent curiosity of like, oh, well, I want to try and do this thing that Billy Joel does, or I want to do this thing that, this chord progression that Chopin or Beethoven was using. And then later on, I think it was the impetus now definitely is for me to think about like, well, what kind of music do I want to hear? That doesn't exist yet, or is something that I can create. And it's kind of a double-edged sword in a way, because sometimes I go out and I see amazing music and I think, well, I don't need to do anything. That person's doing it already. It's the ground is covered. So,
well, nobody else has your voice, Vienna. And that's the other thing I wanted to ask you is, how did you find your voice?
I think that came even before piano. My parents tell me I was singing before I could really talk, and I would be singing along to these tapes of Mandarin Chinese music and totally mangling the words because I was sort of pre-verbal, but I had the melodies down, and I think I loved singing just from the very beginning. But in terms of really developing as a singer, it actually took a while. I sang in choirs and as parts of groups for a long time, but it really wasn't until I graduated from college and started playing in these little cafes for 2 hours at a time and being largely ignored by everybody that I really got to practice this idea of like singing solo and singing as the lead person, I guess, or the lead voice and things.
Well, you command the stage well. Was it difficult at first to get up on stage and put yourself out there like that?
I actually think that having a classical background made it so much easier, because classical music was terrifying to perform, because it's a very demanding and complex art form, obviously, and the piano music that I was playing was always like a little bit beyond my abilities, and so I would just get up on stage to play a Bach fugue or a Beethoven sonata, and I would just be in abject terror for the 20 minutes and just like hoping that I could get through it and wait for it to be over. And so in comparison to that, playing my own music was so easy. It's like, well, I wrote it. If I mess it up, I could say I meant to do it that way. And so I think that in a way, classical performance prepared me really well for playing my own music, because this feels just joyful, you know.
Yeah.
It's really fun.